That needs to be said. I have yet to hear anybody from the Biden administration declare that.
And Rashida Tlaib, where's Rashida?
During a visit to the Ford plant in Detroit, Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib confronted President Joe Biden over his unwavering support of an extreme right-wing Israeli government and the repression of Palestinians. Now, first, I'm going to show you here an image of that confrontation. Now, I'll get to more on the exchange and what Biden said afterward later. First, I want to play for you a clip from Rashida Tlaib on MSNBC last week, just to give you an idea of what she's been saying on this issue.
I mean, this is an apartheid system. I mean, Israel's own prominent human rights organization, B'Tselem, has declared it. Human Rights Watch has declared it. And Palestinians on the ground have been telling us for decades that their homes have been demolished, that they've been targeted, that violence has been met by Israeli-led forces under Netanyahu's racist policies. What we're really telling Palestinians fighting apartheid is the same thing being told to my fellow Black Americans across our country here and that are fighting against police brutality. There is no form of acceptable resistance to state violence, except for the denial of, people's human dignity. And we need to stop. We need to stop and look at the fact that our own country is enabling it with billions of dollars every year being issued to Israel, even though they are promoting racism and dehumanization.
So to that point, the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke with his Israeli counterpart. He expressed the United States' concerns over the violent confrontations in Jerusalem. Do you think the Biden administration needs to take a stronger stance right now towards Israel for the developments that we're seeing there?
Absolutely. We need to hold the international human rights laws that are saying to our folks across the country that they have to abide by. Well, why not Israel? Why not saying to Netanyahu currently, who is, running on anti-Arab rhetoric consistently, accepting violence by allowing Israeli police and military forces to side with Israeli citizens who are literally physically throwing people out of their homes. U.S. taxpayer dollars should not be used to commit human rights violations. That needs to be said. I have yet to hear anybody from the Biden administration declare that our money will not be used to degrade, to dehumanize, and to kill or evict people out of their homes.
So Rashida Tlaib, of course, is exactly right. And she has a personal connection to this issue as well. She is a grandmother living in the occupied West Bank. So not only is she speaking out against this right-wing Israeli government, but also speaking out against the Biden administration's enabling and support of this right-wing Israeli government that is oppressing Palestinians. So now let me get to this confrontation. So first, it wasn't like, Rashida Tlaib came out of nowhere and started yelling at Joe Biden. No, Joe Biden arrived in Detroit and was greeted by Rashida Tlaib and Debbie Dingell, as you'll see here in this video. And this is where the confrontation began. So according to reports in the New York Times here, Ms. Tlaib told the president that the status quo was enabling more killing and that his policy of unconditional support for the Israeli government under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was not working, the aide said. Representative Debbie Dingell, Democrat of Michigan, whose district is home to the Ford F-150 factory that Mr. Biden was visiting and who also greeted him on his arrival, later said that the exchange on the tarmac was part of, quote, an important dialogue. It was very compassionate, honest discussion, she said in a brief interview. But the president doesn't deal with these kinds of issues in public, and he doesn't negotiate in public. Now, after that exchange, Rashida Tlaib called out Joe Biden on his unwavering support on the Israeli government, trying here to get to him as Biden, his history on this issue, he's been more right-wing than even George Bush. If you go back and look when George Bush was president, Biden was actually criticizing George Bush for not being more in support of the Israeli government. So Biden's history on this is horrible. And here you have Rashida Tlaib trying to get through to him through this through this discussion, and also her personal connection to the issue as well. Now, after that exchange, Joe Biden, in his appearance at the Ford plant, said this.
And Rashida Tlaib, where's Rashida? I tell you what, Rashida, I want to say to you that I admire your intellect, I admire your passion, and I admire your concern for so many other people. And it's from my heart, I pray that your grandmom and family are well. I promise you I'm going to do everything to see that they are on the West Bank. You're a fighter, and God, thank you for being a fighter.
Oh, how nice of Joe Biden to pray for her grandmother in the occupied West Bank. He is the president of the United States. That is unwavering in his support of the Israeli government. In fact, Biden administration just approved a $735 million weapons sale to Israel. This is in the middle of this entire crisis. As the president, you should expect more than just prayers. So I appreciate Rashida Tlaib's approach here. I do think Biden is somebody who, as we've seen throughout his career, wants to be liked. So often the positions that he takes are positions that, based on public polling, is what is popular, which is why you've seen him move on a number of issues. Though, of course, that doesn't apply across the board. You know, Medicare for all, for example, is incredibly popular, but he does not support that. So when certain issues come into conflict with who supports him, so a right-wing Israeli government or AIPAC, or say healthcare insurance companies and their money that was given to Biden as well. So when those issues conflict with public policy or public perception on issues, then Biden tends to side with where the money's coming from. So, but despite that, you see here Rashida Tlaib trying to maybe get through to him on this issue, and maybe it'll do something, but I don't think so. Biden has just come out finally, at least vocally, in support of a ceasefire, yet through the UN Security Council still does not support a ceasefire, despite the fact that every other country does. So there is no clearer issue here. You have an immense amount of state violence from the Israeli government being instituted on the Palestinians. There is a clear disparity of power here. Palestinians living in an open-air prison in Gaza, they can't leave. Israel has the power to end this crisis by freeing them. Yet they refuse to do so, instead dropping bombs into a densely populated area of Gaza where there are 2 million people living. In fact, it is the most densely populated area in the entire planet is Gaza. And they're dropping bombs on buildings where people live. So you can't, this is like, if it isn't already clear, it's going to be clear in, just like South African apartheid, in 10, 20 years, 30 years, it's going to be so obvious how wrong people were, how wrong people like Joe Biden were on this issue, and their unwillingness to do anything about it while they were in power. But I'm going to continue following this. Maybe Biden will move on this issue somewhat, but I just don't have any hope that that's the case.